Hey, how's it going? Steve with Interglobal Comics again. Doing another market report. Been kind of just trying to keep an eye on the different foreign comics that are selling. Some that are getting higher prices, some that are getting lower prices, and others just that are just kind of not selling. Um, but first up, we've got a Fantastic Four #5 from Greece. This was printed in the 80s. Pretty difficult book to find. This one, appears to be kind of a lower grade. It was slabbed by PGX, but even the grade, it looks even lower than possibly a 4, just because how stained it is. But no matter what, it's an awesome book. The purple Doctor Doom on the cover, and the almost completely invisible woman. They're just kind of look real cool, and it's definitely this is a pretty fun set to try and build. There's definitely some hard countries to get, like Greece and Mexico, and then you've got easier ones. But this one, being a PGX slab, that doesn't really hold much weight, and most people don't really trust PGX. I guess they've had some issues in the past. So if I was this person that bought it, I would probably just crack it, and just either get it reslabbed or pressed and cleaned and send to CGC. But it sold for $226, which is a pretty strong price. But like I said, you don't really see many of these come to auction. Especially on American eBay. If you have a source in Greece, you should be able to find this for cheaper, not cheap, but cheaper. But either way, it's a cool book. I think it was a guy in the foreign comic group that bought it. So this is a pretty strong sale. I don't know if I've seen one sell this high, but I've also only ever seen like maybe one or two sell on eBay. So it's pretty good price. For the buyer, he's happy to get the book, and the seller, I'm sure was happy with that price for sure. Most of these, you gotta be careful with these Greek books because some of them were pulled from binds, and so you can normally tell because they'll have glue residue on the side of the book, and they're normally trimmed as well. This one, it's hard to tell. It does look like there's like a color loss along the whole spine, but it doesn't appear. I don't know. Maybe it was trimmed. It's hard to tell, but with the Greek books, it's hard to tell in general, just because the print quality was normally so low on them that the covers being miscut and other issues are very prevalent with those books. So who knows? But cool book, cool buy, and not one you'll find just sitting around eBay. That's for sure, and they don't come up very often. So this is a sale on the CGC boards. A seller, well known in the foreign community, sent me a message and told me that he sold this. So yeah, it's Strange Tales 89. First was a Fing Fang Foom, and it's a hard to find American book, so probably really hard to find Mexican book. And he said it sold for $900. So good, probably a pretty decent buy for whoever bought it, because I don't think I've ever seen any of these. Never seen another one for sale. So we've got Fantastic Four Fantastic Four 5, first appearance of Doctor Doom. It's a Newton from Australia, so it's their #4. So this one actually went pretty low. I didn't realize that, when I first saw this listing, that the book obviously is pretty low grade, has tape on the spine, looks like tape on a big tear on the cover. But overall, this is a really hard book to find, and this one did have the poster intact. So, it's a pretty rough copy, and they didn't list it all that well because they used the Australian numbering rather than its American equivalent. But it's, sold for $163. I think if they would have maybe listed it a little bit better, or if this would have been a slightly higher grade copy, it would have gone probably quite a bit higher, because I think I've only ever seen one or two of these sell over the last few years. This was a lot of slabbed foreigns. think it was a couple Russian comics and possibly a Mexican comics, all modern kind of reprints. So it sold pretty low for the 3 slab books. Thinking 3 comics, pretty much it's going to cost you $30 to $50 a piece to slab them. So it's sold for $211. Not the best way to sell foreign books. You probably want to just piece them out one by one and not sell them in like lots. But you just never know how it's going to work out. This one I saw come up, and I thought it was a pretty good deal for somebody. It's an already slabbed Brazilian first print Spider-Man 129 3.0 for $3.99. And these don't come up for sale too often in Brazil, but when they do come up, they're always in really, really low grade. So I think, a 3.0, it's not, I wouldn't consider that a low grade for a foreign. That's kind of like mid grade for, older Brazilian book. So I think someone got a pretty good deal on this one. There's a 8.0, I think is the top of the CGC census. I think that's John Z's copy. And I have a 7.0, I believe. And, these books aren't popping up all the time in Brazil anymore. And I actually had a Brazilian guy reach out to me wanting to do a trade for my 7.0 Spider-Man 129 from Brazil. So when you've got guys that live in Brazil, live in the country, that are sourcing these books, and they're having trouble finding a high grade copy like that, that means something. They're a lot of the probably their more high end, nicer copies have already left the country, and so now they're kind of struggling to find some for themselves. So here's another one. This sold pretty cheap, I'd say, $1.99. I think this is the one that had like the staples removed, and there's like pieces of plastic had replaced the staples. So $200. It's a book that doesn't have the staples, but still, difficult book to find. And if I didn't have one, I probably would have paid that price for it. So this was kind of the steal of the year so far from what I've seen. This was a Brazilian Daredevil 1. It was a lower grade, had one of the top corner had been clipped off, but nothing terrible. And for a Brazilian book, it still presents pretty well. And this is from the mid 60s, but somebody listed it for $20. So that got snatched up real quick, and that's a book that they probably could have listed for $300, $400, maybe $500 and gotten that full price. So they probably got a few messages asking them if they had any other books to sell, because obviously the seller isn't too up with the times if they let a book go that cheap. It's a Daredevil 1 from Brazil. So yeah, whoever got that, congrats. That was a steal, and you probably used up all your foreign luck in that one purchase, because I haven't seen a deal go like that in a while. So I had to look this one up. It was a best offer, Spawn 174, the Brazilian 9.8. I guess the first gunslinger Spawn. So 2008, and this sold for $785. So that seems like a pretty high sale. I don't know much, honestly, about Spawn books. I know they have pretty diehard followers, but $785 seems pretty high for a Brazilian Spawn book. But someone might have been hunting it, and to find a 9.8 of anything from Brazil is going to be very difficult as it is. So this is Ghost Rider 1. In Brazil, they kind of modified the cover a little bit. They almost kind of like did a mashup of Ghost Rider 1 and 2 covers. So it's a cool looking book, and this one went quite cheap as well, $18. And these Abril, it's like a square bound, they're digest size. They come up every once in a while in the Brazilian market, but not really in decent condition. So this one looks like it was pretty nice, and definitely a good deal for whoever snagged it. So this is the Brazilian Something is Killing the Children. Looks like it has a sketch on the cover, a remark, and a signature. Sold for $362. So I believe this was like a con exclusive, or at a something they were selling or giving away at a Brazilian Comic Con. Pretty cool book. To get it 9.8, it was, like I said, very difficult to get anything out of Brazil in 9.8. So probably a pretty fair price for this book. I'm not too up to date on what the American number one is selling for. I think it was over $1,000 for a while, but I think those prices have kind of come back to earth. But cool book, cool that it's sketched, and that it made it across from Brazil to America in 9.8 condition. So this was a couple Golden Age Flash comics from Brazil. Bottom one's from 1943, top one from 1947. So these went cheap, and they sold less than $400. And best offer accepted. I didn't look these two up, but kind of cool books. Not really my cup of tea, but for Golden Age collectors, this was probably a great deal. For books, DC books from that age, especially being foreign, those are gonna be pretty difficult to find. I think they were both low grade with restoration probably, but that's pretty much what you expect when you get Brazilian Golden Age. Spider-Man 4, Scott Campbell, Mexican cover. The Black Cat variant cover is the first appearance of Silk. This one sold for $55. Real pretty cover. I think I said maybe in a past video, I had ordered one of these from Mexico. I don't know whatever happened to it. Never showed up. Maybe it's stuck in customs. Maybe the guy just screwed me, because I never got the book, but I think he only charged me like $30 for it. Kind of the price you pay when you play in the foreign field. Every once in a while you're gonna have a deal go bad, or a book's not gonna show up. I didn't even message them about it. For me, it's not enough money to really worry about. But pretty book. Wish it would have showed up, but I'm not holding my breath. Who knows? Maybe it'll show up in a year, and I've heard that happening before. So this is the Amazing Fantasy 15 black foil Mexican exclusive. Real pretty book. I kind of wish I liked the black, but I don't know. It's just very plain. It kind of looks like it would be like the cover of a DVD or something like that. So pretty surprised it sold for $110. There's a guy in the foreign comic group that just listed a bunch of them for, I think he was selling them for $15 or $20 for per set. So somebody should probably jump on those if they're selling for this much on American eBay, because they could make some quick money if they wanted to. So this is pretty interesting. Whenever a set sells, so this was a foreign comic set that had, I think, some also the American comics in there as well. But actually, no, this looks like it was pretty much all foreign plus a Toy Biz. But yeah, so you've got the Mexican, the French, one of the Nordic countries. Then you've got the Hungarian. Can't tell what that middle one is. That might have been the Toy Biz. Then you've got the smaller French, the bigger French, the Greek, and the Brazilian. So they sold all those for $650. So that seems like a pretty strong sale. But when you think about it, it might have been one of those situations where whoever bought this, they saved so much money on shipping. This was probably kind of a steal for them, because shipping for each one of those countries, you're going to pay $30. Let's say $15 to $30 per one of those comics. So it's going to add up pretty quickly. So sometimes it's just easier just to buy them in a set and not have to worry about it. And selling sets is kind of something I've always wondered about. I feel like if you're selling a set, you should be selling it for a premium. Most books, when you sell a lot, you give a discount. But when you're selling a set, you're really saving somebody, could be years of work. So I feel like when you sell a set, you should probably be selling for a premium, just to kind of get back some of that effort and work you had to put into it to make the set, or just piece it out one at a time, just to kind of, I would think, just to kind of recoup some of the money, because you always got to factor in shipping and time, and none of these comics are going to show up on your doorstep in a week, and these are all taking at least a month to ship to you. So, but pretty interesting sale. Let's see, we've got, this is Italian, can't remember which comic this is, but it sold for $24. They said it's a 9.0, maybe so, from 1979. They did a few, Corno, which is the company that printed this, they did a few DC books, but not many. I believe this is a Corno. I could be wrong though. But yeah, there wasn't like a ton of DC in Italy in the 70s when you compare to like all the Marvel stuff that Corno was putting out. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Mondadori. They did a lot of the DC stuff in the 60s, so there's a lot of those keys, like the first Batgirl, first Scarecrow, I think is there a first Riddler? Yeah, there is. And then like all the Nimbo kids, the digest-sized comics that were all the Superman comics. But kind of when you get into the 70s, there's not as much DC from Italy. So there's a few books out there, but this one sold pretty inexpensive for $24. So checking in again with the Supergirl. This one is from Italy for $125. So this is a sale that somebody was selling the American Batman 181, but they did include the Italian version as well. And so it was a lot of the two books, sold for $6.99. All right, so we've got... these are just the photocopies. So somebody's out there selling photocopies of all these big Mexican keys and non-canon Spider-Man comics, including the Wedding issue, the Jose Luis Duran Wedding issue. It's kind of cool if you just want to take a look at the comics. Definitely probably illegal. He's just selling photocopies of the comic books. I think Rob grabbed one. He said it was decent quality, but definitely nothing that's going to pass for the original. So it's a cool way to check out these books for cheap. I don't know if I'd really support it, because basically he's just bootlegging all these comics, but at least he's kind of preserving history and letting people check these books out that they probably would never be able to hold the real versions of these books, because a lot of these are pretty pricey or pretty difficult to find. This was a Spawn 1 from Spain, 8.5, sold for $157. Seems like a pretty decent price, and I would think that it wouldn't be too hard to find in decent condition from Spain, but you just never know with the shipping. If they ship it bad, then you could have a 9.0 that's going to be a 5.0 by the time it gets to you. This is a pretty strong sale for the first appearance of Sabretooth. It's Iron Fist 14, and this one is the Spanish version. It's kind of a magazine sized, and I didn't even realize it when I first got this. I thought it was the original cover, and then I kind of, after a while, looked at it and I was like, oh no, this is actually, it's redrawn, pretty much copied by, let's see, who's the Spanish artist? I'm drawing a blank. Lopez Espy, I believe. So yeah, he did a good job with these covers. Some better than others, but this one sold for $134, so it's definitely a pretty strong sale. I think I sold one of these just recently for, I think, $50 or around there. So, but they definitely don't come up for sale too often anymore on the Spanish marketplace. But definitely a cool book. Spider-Man 316 from Spain, sold for $50. Pretty strong sale. This is a Darth Vader 1, 9.8, and this was from Italy. And I believe this was like a European-only cover. They used this cover in France, Italy, possibly in Spain. But yeah, and cool cover. And each cover that they did, they changed the background cover or color. So I think the French has like a blue background. But this one, 9.8, it's pretty hard probably to find, Yeah, it's only a few years old, but still, you got to deal with the shipping across, across the Atlantic to get to get to the United States. So this one sold for $132, which seems like a pretty solid sale. I've got Spider-Man 1 from Germany. So this one seemed like a really low sale for $100. I feel like the German Spider-Man keys don't really come up for sale that often anymore, and they're from 1973. So $100 seems pretty cheap. And this one, I checked, it did have the Marvel value stamp. It does look like there's like tape or something on the spine possibly, but even then, it still sold pretty cheap. This was a sale on eBay. Avengers 1, the German edition, and 4.0 sold for $500. This has never been like a real hard to find book, but like I said about the Spider-Man, these times have kind of changed, I guess. Like I think of these kind of as not that rare or not that hard to find, but really they're not popping up in the German marketplace on a weekly basis like they used to. 4.0 sold for $500. So that even shows me Spider-Man 1 I think is a way more kind of iconic book than Avengers 1. So I would think that this should have sold for much more than it did, because if you pop it in a slab, it should sell for more than the Avengers 1, I would think. But who knows? Good sale, $500. Whoever, sold that is definitely happy with that price. Then we've got the Harley Quinn 140, shipped from the UK. So another solid sale for the Harley Quinn Adam Hughes cover with the no underwear, the German variant. It's another German flip book. So this has the Action Comic 1 cover on the front, and then has another more modern Superman cover on the back. Kind of a cool book, sold for $45. So I wish I would have seen this. This is 3 different graded copies of Doctor Strange 169 from Canada. These are French-Canadian. So all different grades from 4, 5, and 6 O's. Pretty solid deals, I would think. This was printed in 1968. So pretty sure, not exactly sure. I'd have to double check because it says it reprints 169, 170 from 1968. But I'm not sure if the actual French book printed that early, because I don't remember France having anything from kind of the 60s. Most of their stuff started in the 70s. So I'll have to double check on those. But still, not a bad deal. This is a Spider-Man Omega 1 from France, Delato, CGC 9.8, sold for $150. And these are a couple of Russian Spider-Man 129s. Raw sold for $55. 9.8 sold for $140. And these are new Turkish books. So they printed the Edge of Spider-Verse. They used the land variant cover, and they also have the original cover. So there's a lot of these Turkish books coming out, and it's kind of getting a little, I'd say almost like a little excessive now. They're basically reprinting every key cover. They did Hulk 181, AF-15. There's just a lot of them. Spider-Man 300, and they're selling because people are set builders. So every new copy they produce, they have to, they know the set builders are going to build it. But I don't know. I'm not too sure how I feel about this being good for the hobby or bad for the hobby. It kind of just seems like a cash grab. Like they can just kind of see, what's a popular foreign set to build, and then just pump out, a couple different variants of it. What I do like about the Turkish books is when they do original covers, like they did that Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen AF-15 cover. Like that one I thought was really cool, and I have one of those. And then for the Spider-Man 300, they did an original cover of like Eddie Brock turning into Venom on the end. Something with a little bit of originality. I like that. I'm not a fan of just seeing the American cover, just basically translated into a different language, and doing that for every key. I think that could kind of make people a little tired of the foreign market. We're seeing that with the exclusives, and the con variants where they're just pumping out, classic covers and just, reprinting all this stuff, and people buy it, but it's also just kind of getting old. So hopefully they don't do that too much coming out of Turkey. I do hope they keep making those original covers. I can't remember the artist's name, Sealor, I think it is. He makes some great stuff. So hopefully they can do some original covers, and I think that'll keep people interested and keep people happy and make it something different, something cool. So it's a Hulk Newton comic from 1975 with the poster and the swap card, sold for $316. So that was a very strong sale for that book. I'm not exactly sure what the swap card is. It says the Dracula. It has a Dracula poster on the inside, but so Newtons have kind of come down some, but there's still obviously some heat on them because this is a pretty strong sale for not what I would consider to be like a mega key book. Here's another Newton. This one didn't have the poster, definitely didn't have the swap card. Sold for $60, so that's pretty cheap. But you just gotta love those colors on that cover with Electro wearing like purple and pink. This is an Australian. I didn't know too much about this book. It just says it reprints the first appearance of Flash. So they didn't include any interior pictures. They didn't show you what was on the inside of the comic. So I'm not sure if it reprints Showcase or what it prints, but it sold for $77. So pretty decent sale there. It didn't say the year either, so I'd like to find that out. But kind of a cool looking cover. I'm not sure if that's like a Australian like paint redone cover, or that's like a cover that was used in America, but something different. Talked about that one already. So this is a real high sale. I see why now. All right, so this is the Hulk Annual 1 from the UK, and I was wondering why it sold for so much, and then I just realized that it has Steranko's signature and Stan Lee's signature. Obviously you'd have to get that verified if you want to get it graded, but just a pretty cool book, I guess. And something different. Anytime I see a foreign comic anytime I see a foreign comic signed by Stan Lee, I always think it's cool, because obviously you can't do that anymore, and there wasn't a lot of people collecting foreigns when he was still alive. Complete Spider-Man 1 from the UK, Todd McFarlane cover. This one sold for $95. So I'm not sure. I know I think I showed the Amigo, I think it's called, an Amiga. It came with a video game version. I'm not sure if that's this one, but I think that's like one of the hardest ones to find. But I don't think that's this one. I'm not exactly sure. But this one sold for $95, so it was a pretty strong sale for Spider-Man 1. Here we've got a few different Spider-Man weeklies from the UK, and obviously you got Spider-Man 50 in there, so it's a pretty good price for these were from 1973, magazine size, full newsprint, just newsprint cover, everything. It was sold for $19, but then you got to pay another $26 for shipping from the UK. And here we've got another German book, Hulk 1. This book sold only for $103, which seems pretty cheap. Like I said, I feel like these German books, and apparently you can still find them pretty inexpensive. And if you, from that, just like that one Avengers book, all you have to do is slab it, and you can probably throw it on eBay for 3-4 times as much and get your money. Because they're cool looking books. They have cool colorations on them, different colors, and they look great in slabs. So, probably not a bad idea to stock up on these ones that are still selling pretty inexpensive. Here we go, another one. This one's a Spider-Man 50, first appearance of Kingpin, kind of lower grade. Looks like it's missing a chunk out of the corner there, but that sold for $50. And then here's one of the facsimiles that came out in, I think, 1999. This was Spider-Man 13, first appearance of Mysterio. This one sold for $150, and it was a 9.4. So, you can get those books in pretty high grade. So, the grade's not crazy or anything. So to me, this is a pretty high price because you can find these normally for about $20, $30, and they're going to be in this grade. But I guess after slabbing and waiting a year for your comic to get back, maybe it's just easier just to get it already slabbed and pay a little bit more. This is the Finish Batman 423, $69. All right, so this was a pretty huge sale. This is a book that I put on my Instagram feed just to let people know that it's out there and that it was for sale. So this is the Star Wars 1 Indonesian set. They use the Star Wars 1 cover, but it's actually the second issue. And there was 3 books. All were pretty, mid to high grade, I'd say, for Indonesian comics. One was a 7.0, so that's pretty about as high as you're going to get. Then one was 4.0. But these were like original, comics. They're kind of bootlegs. They actually went in and basically redrew every panel from the original Marvel comics for the Indonesian market, and so that's really cool. It's kind of bootleggy looking. It definitely doesn't look official, but it's definitely a cool, kind of a cool little piece of comic book history, and definitely not easy to find. And the seller put Rarest on there. There's a couple guys, talking in the background. That's definitely, they didn't feel it was the Rarest. I guess they think the South African would be considered more rare, and then I forget which the other one that's really rare, but definitely not easy to find. I'm happy that I was able to get a set. I got my set, I think maybe last year or the year before that, from a friend in Indonesia. I think my number 1 cover, this cover, is higher grade probably than a 5.0, but then my other ones are lower grade. But definitely, cool books, and it's cool to see that I feel like they got good money for them. I think, probably, they paid anywhere about what I paid, and I paid, I think, just a few $100s for this issue, and maybe $100 or $200 for the other 2 issues. So they, they made some decent money on it. But I feel like these comics were deserving of that money, because these are not easy to find. All right, and the Fantastic Four, another set from Germany, 48, 49, 50. Once again, sold for $150, which seems pretty cheap. And then the first appearance of Black Cat from Germany. This is the second time they printed it, and this one sold for less than $35, so pretty inexpensive. And then let's see, this is funny because this was for sale at auction, didn't sell. It went through its relist cycle last night, and then when I woke up today, it had sold. So or I guess it sold last night at some point, but sold for $3.99. It's still a real strong sale. These have been selling in the $200 to $300 range. Kind of low grade, 3.0. I picked one up just this last month, and it's pretty high grade. I'm pretty happy with it. So I've considered getting it slabbed. I'm not exactly sure. I've kind of like everything that's going on with CGC has kind of turned me off to slabbing anything else. I've got, I think, 6 or 7 orders sitting at CGC, that some of them been there since February. So I'm not too keen on sending too much more stuff in, but I do have a couple books that I have on the way that I feel like are pretty significant keys, so I should probably send them in when they arrive. So we'll see once I get those. And speaking of that, here's one of those books. This is a book that I picked up just last night. It was up for auction. Action Comics 242, first BRAINIAC from Mexico, Novaro. This I've been trying to snag one of these for years. I've seen a couple come up on a Spanish marketplace, not in Mexico, and they tend to go. They were going, for around $150, and every time one would sell, it would sell for a little higher. But they only come up like maybe once a year. So then finally, I was like, you know what, screw it. I just need to get this copy. So I thought I was gonna have to battle somebody for it, but I was the only bid on it. $250. It's not in amazing shape, but it's not in bad shape either. So hopefully with the press, it'll turn out pretty good. And I'll probably have to send it off to CGC. And then I also was able to get a Action Comics 252 from Brazil, which is a really hard book to find. I've been looking for either a Mexican or Brazilian version of that book. First appearance of Supergirl. That one I was able finally to secure a copy out of Brazil. Had to pay a decent amount for it, but still not a bad deal. I think I got a pretty good deal on it. So I'll show that one off whenever it arrives. But that one I'll probably send off to CGC as well, just because it's kind of like a pretty significant book. So I feel like those big mega keys, you should probably put them in a slab. But I think that is it for now. So hopefully you guys found this interesting, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.